Think we are here. Hello? Yes, I got that. It's okay, Alex. Let me do my introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream of the graduation projects of Visual Game and Media Design 2022. We are finally here with a little bit of delay. I am here with Jakob Ionville and some students that will keep coming and we'll start seeing their projects really soon. So, Jakob, how are you?
Yes, I'm fine. I'm excited actually to see all of those projects that you'll see in a minute. So welcome to you all. I'm Jakob Jon Wille, and I'm here on the behalf of Jesper Juhl, who is normally heading the program, but Jesper Juhl couldn't be here today. So I'm here as a colleague and associate professor at the academy. And I remember when I graduated from Aarhus University many years ago, I got a letter returning my deposit, and then I got a letter with a diploma, and that was it. At the academy, it's something special. Actually, we are celebrating you for a week, and this is the first day of that week of celebrations. So on Wednesday, we'll have visits from the industry, and on Friday, we'll open an exhibition with all your projects. And if you're in Copenhagen or near, you should come visit and look at the projects that you will get a presentation of today. So it's something special, and that's because you are special. And I know because I know you a bit. But if you know the academy, you will know that people here are working on a high artistic level. That's one thing, and you are working with design methods. That's another thing. And least but very important, I think you're good collaborators. And to find that combination in an education and with candidates, that's actually kind of rare. So that's why I enjoy being in your company and looking at your work and just being here. And you should know that these qualities are rare, and you should also remember one thing, and that is to come back and remind us if we forgot to appreciate those qualities. And on that note, I think we have some more celebrations on from colleagues and friends of the academy. Isn't that right, Andreas? And thank you for setting all this up, Andreas.
Yes, it's been a pleasure to do this. I was actually very interested in seeing how do you actually set up a stream, and I got some help from Simone. By the way, I didn't get to present myself. I am Andres Cabrero. I'm an assistant teacher here at the school, and I am guiding this stream today. I am in this small cube here that I can move it. So yes, congratulations is something that we're going to be hearing a lot today, and we're going to pass on the congratulations video. So congratulations, and let's move on to that. Now let's media.
Hello, my name is Daisy. I graduated last year from the Visual Game and Media Design course, and I want to say a huge congratulations to everyone graduating this year. It is such a big achievement, and I hope you can all breathe out a big sigh of relief and find some time to chill out after all your hard work. I'm really loving all the projects, really really great selection of world building and narratives around class and equality, detective puzzles and mysterious lighthouse AR games, and some very beautiful atmospheric walkthrough games as well. It's really nice to see the collaboration between different disciplines in these projects, and some projects are focusing more on pushing the boundaries of solo development. So there's a really cool selection, and it's very inspiring for a graduate from previous years to see all the cool work coming in. So I hope you enjoy your stream, and I'm loving watching all the videos. So keep going, and I can't wait to see the kind of stuff you make in the future with the skills that you've learned. So have a great time, and congratulations. Hello, my name is Dave.
Okay. Someone, if
I'm gonna do this. If someone in the chat is watching the stream and seeing that we have the audio feedback Simon was talking about, please let us know, and then I will know that there is something with the microphone. Otherwise, that was Daisy Kinahan, and now we're moving forward to the next congratulations video. In this case is going to be Regina Dubiel. Capture, switch.
Hey graduates, my name is Regina Dubiel and I'm a former student of the Royal Danish Academy at what was in those days called production design. Currently I'm working as the art director and content lead in Movistar Planet, one of the bigger games companies in Denmark. I just wanted to congratulate you and wish you all the best in life outside of school. I've had the pleasure of working with your education, both as an external examiner and also I've hired 3 people from the Visual Games and Media Design Masters. So I know firsthand that you have one of the best foundations to go from. If I can offer you one piece of advice from the industry perspective, which is way more practical than high flown, for your applications, do not only present yourself, but also present a solution to a problem. Thomas Löfgren, head of design at Lego, once told me, when you want a job, you just need to start doing it and the rest will follow. This works for both applications and when you are in a work situation. Act the job you want to hold. So, congrats again. All the best to you and I hope to see you out there.
Okay, so now the last congratulation video is going to be from Simon Lovind, and I am going to, actually I'm realizing maybe, there we go.
Hello, and congratulations to all new candidates of Visual Game and Media Design. My name is Simon Løvin. I'm the head of games and digital media at the Danish Film Institute. There we have something called the Game Scheme, which is a support scheme for development and production of video games. So if you have projects with high artistic ambitions or you want to make games that can set a cultural agenda, you should really come and talk to us. Remember though that we consider game design a truly cross-disciplinary endeavor, so best of all come to us as a team where you collaborate with the professionals in the fields that is not your stronghold. But we really need your talents and we really need your fresh ideas, and we can actually help original games to develop and reach an audience. So I'm looking forward to see you all as a part of the Danish game industry. And again, congratulations with your candidate. See you out there.
Thanks, Simon. Now we go back. Okay, those were the congratulation videos that we had, and the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be presenting the students' projects. Unless we want to say anything else before we start with that, we have all of the students are ready. We have this thing ready. So, okay, the first student is going to be Lucas.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Lucas, you get the microphone,
Okay.
and I activate the microphone so that
Wow.
you talk.
Hi.
Yeah, hello.
Should I introduce myself?
Yes, please introduce yourself.
I'm Lucas. I'm finishing here at KDK. I did a small project that uses VR and machine learning to explore like discomfort and expressing the uncanny valley. Yeah, that's more or less what I did during the semester.
Switch back here. Let's go into the material. Oh, you sent it on picture.
I was in the video.
Then you and switch off there, and then go to your mail, and I'm gonna open your teaser. Huge.
Yeah.
Nice. We're gonna be playing these. As you tell us about the project.
Sure.
And now with this game, turn back.
Sure. So the main idea was to explore a bit of ways to generate like discomfort in the user in a way that they are still engaged, while also like exploring like the idea of uncanny valley. I really went back into the who like talks about the uncanny valley, like old researchers and stuff like that. So I also did some research and start to explore a little bit of like 3D modeling. I had this like open source software that generates a bunch of human meshes, and then I start to reconnect and play around with the meshes to express the uncanny valley. And to generate the discomfort, I was playing a lot with like all sorts of effects that had like different impacts on the player. The main goal was like to not have like necessarily a horror experience, but more like uh, yeah, like challenging, like a little bit like trying to have some sort of generate some sort of discomfort, some sort of like uh different emotions other than just pleasing, which is a thing that I think that is often like present, if not directly, like indirectly in design practices. And I wanted to explore like other things and to see what happens, like what people can also take out when they are experience like discomfort, especially during the project. I This is like a VR experience, so yeah, like seeing a video sometimes doesn't like do honor to the project, but I also use the machine learning to play with like different like types of noise that appear. So you have like the statues and they repeat, and then you have to move around also like a lot of the static. So yeah, more or less like the project was about like exploring the like abrasiveness. Also like while I was doing this project, I was listening to a lot of like noise, the genre of noise, like especially like Japanese noise, bands that like explore many like palettes of noise, not only like one type. So in this room that we're seeing right now, which is one of the main rooms, you have like the head that you grab, and depending on where the head is, like the shape of the noise outside of the room changes. The soundtrack is also like very intense heavily. Yeah, and you have like a lot of like sculptures that I did to play around with the shape of humans. Also like toying around also with the idea of like humans as subjects and playing around all this philosophy kind of things, like playing with the idea of like humans as subjects and everything else as objects. I wanted to put like humans as like in the positions literal like objects. So yeah.
Lucas, question.
Yeah.
In a context where games are so often products that are made to serve the player's needs and comfort the player and make the player feel nice, um, why do you think that this is the case? Why do you think that so like games are just so often in that side of things?
Right. I think it comes from the fact like it's kind of like a old battle, right? Like games established as an industry in a very in a context that made games to more you kind of tame games, and a lot of people didn't call themselves like games, and I wanted to go back into this tradition. Like sometimes I think like games even ignore like the arts tradition in a very funny way, because like which for me didn't make sense. So I wanted to like look into like old experiments and be very close to like arts and experimentalism in general. Also to also distance myself to the idea of making a product. So I wanted to like go against the idea of like pleasing a consumer and going full on like making something that like explores like okay what happens, because I myself listen to a lot of noise music, and I wanted to like understand like okay what is like a project that embraces all of that, like what is this about. And yeah, I think it was a very nice experiment. When I did some playtests, a lot of people were like engaged. Like the first reaction is always like, "What is this? This is horrible." But after they play around, often they were like saying that it was a really nice experience, and some people even
Was it nice?
yeah, that is another question. But I think the project also comes from this desire of going against the flow theory, like going against this. I didn't want to have like a flow state. I wanted to like always like you were always like being challenged constantly, like you're always like being overwhelmed by information, which I think like in this day of age, we just been to a pandemic. Like we had the first year was in during a pandemic. We are having like a lot of problems to deal during the project. I felt like this was the message that I wanted to do. Also, like I was reading a lot of like Camus and Kierkegaard and looking into like absurdism and all of this, and like this was my answer to the moment that we were living, like to have this incoherent like cacophony that does give you something, but not necessarily like it's not clear. It's like I wanted a piece that constantly challenges you and like dares you to stay. And if you stay, hey, maybe you have a good time, but maybe not. It's not always like clear.
What about this last piece, this last part of
Yeah.
the project where you don't have that much this abrasive noise? It's not that overwhelming. Suddenly you have like a small moment of chill, maybe.
Yeah. So like the game is like divided in like three sections. Like the first section is to shock you, so everything's horrible, everything's kind of moving. Uh for for you to be scared. And then the second part is like you have like some repetition of some elements starts to repeat. So you kind of like have a sense of familiarity, but they are always like abrasiveness and always like challenge you. And then when you like get used to all of that, you have this last moment, which is like kind of like a museum experience that you interact with pieces to like put up like a small little puzzle. So if you like sustain all that abrasiveness, you can kind of be, you can have something by the end, which is still like kind of disturbing, but alive in a way. So I think it also like comes from the desire to express like play and aliveness in a new and interesting way. Yeah. Also like this is also like a homage to experimentalism, as I was saying. Like I wanted to literally like experiment. The whole process of the game was like one of the most fun that I had in a long time. So yeah,
Okay, nice. Thanks a lot, Lucas.
thank you.
Thank you. And maybe we should just now will change places.
Okay.
So you will take my place,
Sure.
and then the next in line will sit here.
Sure.
I'm turning off the display capture. So I'm sitting.
Yeah. Yeah. Come sit by my side. Come sit by my side. There's a delay.
I'm sorry for this. I'm gonna throw like a reviews on the chat.
Oh yeah,
Then they will get recorded.
Sure.
People can check that.
Sure. The project's not published yet. I'm just doing like some final tweaks, but yeah, it will be soon on my each page.
Okay.
about that microphone and I'm starting now to talk through here. I completely forgot. Maybe the audio, but I mean the proper audio, which was the one you were saying, should be good. Maybe I was not sounding great, but that's
Nobody
not the
cares.
problem. Nobody cares about me. Now we're gonna move to. Oh, wait a moment. Alex. Alex, I'm bringing you back. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I am sorry, Alex, that I forgot about you. That's my bad. You were supposed to be the first student, and I jumped directly to Lucas because Lucas was next to Jakob. That was it. That's what happened. And you are on Zoom, so you're a virtual human.
Yes, I'm a virtual human. Don't discriminate.
That makes you a second-class human. I'm so sorry. Okay, so the thing that happens with your audio is that I will need to shut up, and then you can take on, and I'm going to be playing the video that you sent me. Okay? So
Perfect.
I'm going to disable my activate it again. And now we're going to, okay. Your video, you send it to me on the material. I should have it here, Alex. MP4, this is gonna be very loud. So I'm gonna lower it. And Alex, you are on. Tell us about your project.
Hello, my name is Apostolos Alexandros. I'm also known as Alex. My project's name is Mind Type, which is a romantic detective adventure game with puzzles. So we follow the story of you play as an investigator who enters people's memories in order to restore them. And you're entering Lina's mind for a journalist from Slovakia to help her remember specific memories in order to aid the investigation of her missing boyfriend Sebastian. So in this game, I was working as a UI concept artist at first, and then while I joined the project, I started seeing that it desperately needed some art direction. So I proposed that, and it was accepted. So I started working on Art Bible, and this project was taking place in Dansk Filmskole, and we were a small group of students and professionals called Indoor Sound Classes, and we were developing the game in Unity. And throughout the project, I did a lot of things like user interface, 2D concept art, and my main goal in this project was to ensure that the art direction is reflected throughout all the parts and processes of the production. So I also took up on the graphic design and logo design, as well as some character design to help our 3D artists. And yeah, that's kind of how it went. And I'm very happy that I had this opportunity to work on this project. And so the core loop of the game had some elements, gameplay elements that I also had to work on, considering the fact that you enter these scenes that are memories, and then you have these puzzles. So you have a missing piece in this scene that you kind of have to deduct which it is by listening to the audio and looking around. And we have this very interesting style called photogrammetry, which is basically 3D scans of an object through multiple angles. So it creates this kind of imperfect visual, which is also very interesting. But what was challenging was ensuring that everything that I was putting on the project was complementing that. So the UI, the character design, everything had to work with the style of a project that I kind of joined a little later on. So that was kind of like the challenging and the interesting part of this project. And yeah, that's about it.
You were working, Alex, you were working with the UI, you were working also concept art, and this is a project that is mixing lot of different visual styles together. How was it to work in let's say such a messy visual space?
I think the biggest challenge in the project was looking at the existing material and then shuffling through them and creating consistent archive. I think that it was the most challenging part because it was very disorganized on that aspect. And then after that, it was, I mean, of course, it was many responsibilities, but it was about assigning specific days, specific tasks, and being in communication with the team.
How many people were you working with that were depending on this art Bible that you were working with?
The core team is 6 people, so 6 people who started working on the project when it was like a first concept. And then, I mean, while I was on the team at that point, because many people have come and go, it was about 14, 15 people.
Okay, so you would say that this art Bible was an essential piece for coordinating all of the visual efforts of this project.
Yeah, it was very important also for the level designers, the director, our sign designers, the sound designers, programmers. So we were also the 3D artists that I worked with. So it was very important to, but it was also kind of a good, thing to fall back to when you had like creative solutions to figure out. Because if you have like a shape language in a basic direction, then it's easier to apply to new problems that you have to solve.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. We're going to be moving on.
Thank you very much.
I'm also going to throw your links in the chat. That's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. There you go. I'm activating. Setting it back on. And now with us, okay, we have it. We have camera. Yes.
Let me see.
Okay, so now with us is Nick and his New Frontiers projects. I'm activating your microphone, Nick.
Hello.
I'm gonna play your video, which is also YouTube. Yes. Actually, I have it here. So prepared. I will probably need to lower that a lot, as we have now. Yeah. Okay, so tell us about your project.
Yeah, so New Frontier is a narrative action-driven game set in like a Western, space Western setting. The game follows newly appointed Abigail Torres as commander for her own team on her way to a hostage evacuation that then goes south really quickly. The overall goal and concept of the game was to figure out how you as a single individual could create a visual narrative and visual storytelling that had a lot of character relations intended. So that meant figuring out how to actually make an overall animation pipeline with facial animation, body animations, corresponding emotions that could supply and back up your visual narrative throughout the story.
Seems like a feat of efficiency to try and put all of these pipelines together in a project. How long did it take? How long were you producing this for?
I think active production on this was around 5 months,
Okay.
give or take
Yes.
a little bit. I will also say that the intended scope of this game was actually intended as a 2-story arc, but because of the intense labor with the animation pipelines, I had to round it down to a single arc, basically.
one-person production,
Yes.
practically.
Yeah, basically I wanted to see how far can you actually push the limits for a one-person production in base of a vertical slice, and see if you could get it up to a industry standard in regards to character engagement.
And how far did you actually push your limits?
You okay there?
Yeah.
Ah, okay,
yeah.
good. I would
No,
say.
no one told me that your video was not being played.
Ah.
I just saw it now on the screen there.
Absolutely fair. The good part comes now, so that's just perfect.
Yeah, and we will loop it again.
Yeah.
I was asking you. You were wondering how much could you push a one-person production, and I'm asking you how much do you actually push yourself?
Well, the starting goal was to see if I could create a production pipeline that was fully motion capture, both facial and body motion capture, and that was also the basis for the game. Then throughout production, I slowly began to look into automation in forms of lip sync, eye movement, blinking, all those different elements that also give life to characters, and try to see, okay, how can I actually combine these different elements so that even though you're time constrained, or even though you have a time constraint, you can still have a certain quality of animations. And when time is more, what do you say? When you have more time, then you can go into the more unique animation sets.
What are you going to do now? Now that you have put together all of these tools, all of these setup for pipelines and narrative and animation and production of assets, are you thinking about continuing this?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, I never got to finish up the second act, which is the more combat-focused part of this narrative action game. So that would be the next step. Actually integrate the ending of the story, and also integrate the, what do you call it, the decisions that your character makes, and see where does that actually pan out. Because as a player, you have the opportunity to like shape this story as you please by taking multiple different decisions, depending on how you want to play the game.
I want to show a little bit of the start of the game, because you actually also made intro videos, cinematics that were going on in here.
Yes.
Talking about the backstory of the main character.
Yes, overall, I wanted, my goal again for this was to have a tool that could encompass all these elements, having the dialogue, having the cinematics, the animations, all cohesively played together in a agile production, so to speak, so that if one element had to be replaced or edited, it wouldn't actually break the rest of the game.
How did the playtesters found it when you when you got people to play the game?
I would say they quite quickly figured out the visual aspect, the themes of the game, and the overall story. As playtesting progressed, I could see that some of the story building elements were still lacking, where again through iterations that became more obvious again here. As you also can see, this would then be the second part of the game, the second act. But yeah, overall a good reception.
Okay, nice. Thanks a lot, Nick. And I want to stop it there. Down. And join your links. And it's the turn of Saya. I think I actually have your video.
You do, it's that one. Yeah.
So, I am lowering the volume a lot, and I'm bringing it up. So, okay. Saya, your project is called Gates of Marior.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So I wanted to work with world building, and I wanted to make a game that was story based. So I made this game where I first worked a lot on the world building, and then wanted to place you in this world in a specific role and make you interact with different elements of it. The game is slightly text-based. It's like a visual novel, basically. And you play as like a bureaucrat who is trying to figure out what's going on outside the city, and you can make some different decisions in terms of like depending on what you say to people, you will learn different things about the different people. There are different political factions, different social classes that you will also learn different things about depending on how you choose to approach them. Um, and the structure of the game is basically that after each conversation, you're prompted to decide what you write in your notes about this character. Like, do you think this character is going to be violent? And at the end of the game, you're prompted to tell the guard. You can also choose not to tell him anything, but depending on what you tell him, you will get some variations in the ending. So I really wanted to place the player in this position of having a very limited amount of power and a very like specific amount of power, so that you are basically you are a person in this world. You're a person in this world rather than someone who can decide what story you would like to be told. Like you are invited into the world by actually being subject to the rules of the world.
You say that this is text-based, but there is also a lot of visual production
Yes.
involved in it. How was the visual aspect of it? Because you are giving the narration an entire different side to it with the visuals, and there is a lot of character design. There is a lot of all of these small aspects that you're talking about, social class and the different political factions are represented as well visually.
Yeah. So I had a pre-production phase basically, where I went through like all the world building, and that included a lot of visual development. Like I designed, okay, what do the different classes look like? What kind of symbols do the different political factions use? I decided like which type of art style they have in this world. So, for example, here in the intro, you have all this decoration, and like the UI has all this decoration. So yeah, it like along with like narrative, there was also this desire to have like cohesive visual look that supports like what you learn about the characters. I mean, there's the different political factions are also color coded to like help the player identify them. Yeah.
So you are basically interacting in these particular moments in the political situation of a city that has to do with some protests that are going on and some people that are wanting to enter the city and they cannot. And probably no matter what you choose, stuff is going to happen. And how did you you are basically playing with a small narrative moment and you have a lot of information around it.
Yes. That's also what I learned, that like there's a lot of talk about how best to do world building from a perspectual point of view, but not a lot of talk about how to convey it best. How can you actually communicate it so people understand it? So that was like a big challenge because I have such a short game and I have so much information to try to convey to people in such a short amount of time. And I think like the color coding definitely helped a lot. The backgrounds when you talk to people here, for example, is also like the political symbols. So like trying to reiterate the important points enough times that people like if they don't catch up on it the first 2 times, maybe it'll catch up on the third or fourth time.
Yeah. Also, I would say, I don't know, correct me if I am wrong with this, but I would say that this is not a matter of solving a problem.
No.
It's not like a detective game where you have a situation that you find the correct solution for. It's humans, it's human based, and it's going to be messy no matter what.
Exactly, and that's also like part of the point of like I was saying, placing you as a person in this world. Like you don't have all the information, you don't have like the power to just decide I want the good ending. You have a like you have some different things you can do, but ultimately things are going to go south no matter what you do. It's
Yes.
just a question of like exactly how does it go south.
And you're a diplomat, which already puts you in this situation of I am slightly useless.
Yes.
I have to deal with this.
Yes, you are like basically this is a role in universe that used to have a lot more power than it does now. Like it's a very symbolic thing at this point. So the extent to which you have power is also like very dependent on how much do people actually want to listen to you. So yeah, there's also like an attempt to because it's such a political situation, like it's very deliberate placing you in a situation where your loyalty is essentially to the government. So obviously the options you have are also going to be related to that role and that like set of natural interests that come with that role. So like trying to navigate that and yeah, sort of being critical of that, like while placing you in that role was also like something I wanted to do.
Nice. Okay, great. So let's move to the next project. Thanks a lot, Saya. That was Gates of Marior. Marior? How do you say that? Marior, okay. I'm going to close this now.
You might want to mute my video, actually.
I might wanna?
You might want to, because I talk over it, and that's not very productive. I'm going to talk on the mic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
So, I'm also going to throw your links in the chat. Size links. And your video is sorry for this. No. You send it to me in here.
Yes. There.
You did.
It's under yesterday.
Yesterday. Under
Yes,
yesterday.
it's because it's another
There you
name.
go.
There.
Navigation stream. Okay, so I'm muting this.
Yes.
We are working on it. Working on it.
Fantastic.
Nice. And now we are not that. Okay. Tell us about your project.
Well, I made a comic pipeline of all things. I'm a kind of a comic buff a little bit. This is mostly in the craft of it. And I've been trying to get into this digital platform of Webtoons and Tapas where you can like publish your own stuff and it'll be up immediately and no editor needed. And turns out these pipelines that they use tend to, well, I mean, first of all, pipelines have always been a thing in comics. We just don't really see it as much as consumers because it's very hidden in the scope of things. And we don't hear about comic artists talking about their comics a lot, or the process of it. It's always been very elusive to talk about. But now, lately, with everyone having access to publishing their own comic very quickly, it's become a topic again to talk about how do we do this effectively. Because now the industry has become a lot more competitive and fast-paced, and you need to produce so and so much to be successful. So a lot of people have started relying on these same pipelines. We did a lot of reading of these comics, me and my assistant, and turns out we caught the same fucking 3D chair in like 10 comics. It's the same classroom, and we got kind of tired of that. So we made our own, because why not? And that consisted of a few tools. We had to research first what do we need for this to actually succeed as a comic pipeline, because obviously every comic will need different tools to work, just like a video game. Like not everyone needs a face rig, like Nick does, or soundtrack or whatever. But we came up with about 4 tools that would allow us to expedite a process on a comic. And the first one was a very extensive reference material. We have a lot of just pictures of the characters, the props, and some of the more visual motifs that we need to use. And this is because we were bringing in assistants to work with us. I had some volunteers in. I know one is in stream actually right now, so hi. And through these references, my assistant and anyone later down the line could jump in, get a really quick introduction to the characters, and get to it immediately, which is very standardized for the industry. Both in games and comics, you have these common visuals that you consult when you want to replicate the visuals. So that's the first thing, and we had a ton of those. But next to that, there's 3 tools which are a little more practical application. One of those was, well, this is an architecture models now that we're having on screen. We built a lot of scenery in 3D because catching architecture in perspective and angles all the time takes a long time by hand without any reference. So we built these sets so we can slap them in and draw over them, and it looks great. It looks totally fine. You can see it on Webtoons as well. People do use 3D buildings, but they don't draw over them. They just paste them in, add some lighting, all done. And it certainly looks. So that's why we did our own stuff. Also because Edopure Japan buildings were apparently hard to get. So it was all good. Another thing we did was our custom brush set, which is also running on the video right now. And anyone who does 3D art will know that custom brush sets are very common in digital art. We all have our own little folder somewhere with it. And we needed a lot of trees, a lot of bushes. We needed a lot of nature brushes that corresponded to the art of the characters. Because just like if you download a 3D model of a building, it's not going to be your style. So we had to do it our own. And among these, we made about 14 different trees, which will pop up on the screen sometime again, to expedite the process of trees, because we needed our nature to be incredibly detailed and majestic and beautiful to look at because of the themes of the story, which very quickly is about the joys and crises of figuring out who you are in a very big world that is very scary and confusing. So we did that, and the last tool we did was the angle atlases, which was basically a big atlas of heads of characters which are turned one way or the other in whatever angle you could imagine. And we built those in 3D first, very quickly in Fuse, which has a nice character creator kind of module. We export those to a document, we trace over them, and now we can just plug them from the sheet and put it on the page, trace over it, it's done, it's over. It takes no time and it's a delight.
What about bodies? What about the action?
Bodies in action. I have a very distinct way of drawing bodies in action. We did use Magic Poser to varying success. The problem with posing a body in 3D in a static motion is that it's going to look static when you draw it. So most action is actually drawn out from the ground up, physically, or analog. And then if it was a particularly difficult pose, because we did have a few of those where it was like from an angle here and like every limb everywhere, it would be referenced in a poser first and then like traced over with a 2D overlay. But we didn't really use posing that much, but we might be doing that later, particularly because the pose software we used back then was very anime-esque, which meant it was very spindly men and women, and we don't really do spindly. We're a little more blocky in our style, so it was a lot of translation work as well.
So you also had a project that put together a lot of tools. What is the scope or the longer term scope for this?
Oh boy! So we released our pilot chapter, or not the whole. We released a pilot sequence on Webtoons. There is a link in the video. It's kind of long, so if you just go to Webtoons and you type in Season's Edge, you will find it. I think, hopefully, if it's optimized enough. Sure, you can check it.
Oh no, it's not a YouTube one.
Oh no, it's on Webtoons currently, but it should be there. I mean, if we start making money, which we would release the full series, but for now we're aiming to complete the first volume, then release it, and see if there's enough interest to warrant a second volume.
All of this effort of efficiency is directed towards the idea of actually making a profit at the end.
I mean, I would love to be the altruistic artist who just works for no money. That'd be very beautiful, but I need to eat, so we want to make money, yes, preferably.
And on Webtoons, in this format, let's say, of comics,
Mm.
how do you do it?
Make money. Well, they do sign with certain people. There's a bit of there's
It's a
some
matter of popularity.
predominantly, and if you fit their style, and if you're okay with their terms, we have some opinions about that, but I'm not going to spread discourse about that here. It's not the platform.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Is it you? I am so excited to see your stuff.
Next one in line is Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello. Hello.
I am having some. If I speak in this microphone, then I'm heard your microphone. So because you're close, I'm just going to use your microphone.
Want me to lean over?
Exactly. No.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want you to lean over. I just want you to have the nice audio. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I could get close a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
You guys should sing a little duet, actually. Would be really nice.
That would be wonderful. I would love
Okay,
that.
Let's look at your project.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at your project. Right. Yeah.
Sure thing.
What
Yeah.
did you do, Chris?
I made a horror game because I really like horror games. And it's more or less what I want to do with my future in like developing games is just try to create good looking horror games. And like I had struggled in the past with like trying to create a horror game that actually looks good. Because usually like during most of my projects I've been focusing so much on game design or level design or any other aspects because unfortunately I'm one of the very typical game designers trained here where it's usually like there's so many aspects that are interesting that I want to work with. So I've never just took an entire project and only focused on its visuals. And this is the one time I tried to do that. So this project is all about developing pipelines when creating 3D art as a solo developer. So it's just a big old project of trying to be as efficient and use technology as good as possible in order to create these very like highly populated detailed scenes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the different, let's say, episodes of this. First of all, you made a bunch of assets, a lot of 3D modeling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's where I like put a lot of time and effort into was to, well, obviously just like take the actual time to create these these 3D models, but also coming up ways of like actually creating them. So like everything is handmade, but like in a traditional sense, you would like sculpture high poly meshes, and then you would bake it down to a low poly, and then we would texture it, and then we import it into a game engine. Sculpting takes a long time, and it's like something that you actually need at some point in any game because you need to make like, well, not now I'm just generalizing, but like in a like detailed 3D game, you would need to like do some sculpting at some point. But a lot of like objects such as doors or tables, chairs, more like insignificant props that still needs to be made, but they don't need to be hand sculpted. So what I did was when I was working with this is was working with like non-destructive 3D pipelines where I could apply surface deformations and just like create like a lot of assets in a very short amount of time. And because the workflow is non-destructive, I can always go back and iterate upon it very quickly if it's needed to have a visual change.
So you did not sculpt?
I sculpted one plank in the beginning of my project, and it took me about 2 hours just to like get into the swing of it again, and like creating all the little nice wood fibers. And the plank looks great, but it took me 2 hours to make one plank, and that's not good enough.
Not efficient.
No. So the non-destructive workflow with modifiers using Blender and Substance Painter was really a game changer for this project. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do all of these props and environments.
The other thing that I see is a lot of the other side of the project I see is light and placing everything together, having the textures, and how do they combine together in the light? How do you find working with lighting here?
Well, I kind of had to cheat a little bit because I'm using the Unity high definition render pipeline, which is not a problem by itself, but sometimes when baking lights, for example, it can be problematic getting like a good bake because Unity is just known for being a little bit problematic when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I've been doing is just like trying to reduce and keep the amount of lights to as minimal as I can. But for the lights to actually make sense, I need like actual believable light sources for them, right? So like I can't really do some tricks that, well, I could, but they would probably look very bad. Is that just put in like random light sources at points, right? But I actually wanted it to like make sense. So it's not baked, it's all real time. I used to use post-processing effects to achieve things such as ambient occlusion and reflection probes to get like nice and correct reflections on all of my shiny objects. And yeah, and using the new Unity Live shadow maps, which are like the default when you work in Unity HDRP. It's been really helpful to create some nice looking shadows and lights without having to go into the process of baking.
So you avoided sculpting, you avoided baking.
Mm.
You didn't avoid audio design.
No, I didn't. Yeah, for sure. I sat around like a crazy person listening to noises. It was nice.
Putting noises together.
Yeah.
Okay, that was like when you were playing testing with people.
Mm.
How did they find it?
Well, I didn't really do play tests per se because it was all about like creating these pipelines and trying to achieve a higher visual quality for my game. So I did visual playtests where people got to vote on still pictures from the game next to established games from the industry. And when people were doing these kind of blind tests and blind votes, they actually assumed that the production team behind my game was around 20 to 50 people, and that it was usually like higher quality than like a lot of established games, like the new latest Amnesia, for example, scored way lower than that this did, which is just very funny to me.
Utilize this in a job application.
Yeah, I should. I should really just like not bring that up to the Amnesia people, I think.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. It looks amazing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. How many hours did you work on this?
How many hours? I don't know. Active production time was like 3 months or something. Then it's like 2 months, which is definitely setting up to doing research and doing reports and fun things.
Even though you were wanting to focus entirely on visuals, you were doing many other things.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's level design and world building and.
You did beautiful research.
Yeah, thanks.
Around all of these stuff. That also took a lot of time.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let's move on. Thanks, Chris.
You're gonna move. You can stay and keep Matt company. Okay, I hear a noise.
Yes. I am going to share. I'm going to share the links of Chris. This is not being shared now. Yeah. Chris links should be here. No.
Oh no. Cool. People get to see my very fun email.
Slams fist on desk, wham. Let's see. I did that earlier.
You send me the links afterwards, and
Yeah,
I'll put
for
them
sure.
on the chat. So now we're going to Matt. Matt,
Hello.
hello. You gave me a USB stick,
I did.
and that's here. And are we playing this?
Yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, just to introduce this, I've done an iOS game using augmented reality. It's called Lily is the Keeper. Basically, you start out, you create a play space in your space, and once you define that, it tries to place one by itself, but we can reposition it, of course.
And it detects if there's.
So what we're actually using is we're using your iDevice as essentially the controller for your game. So as you move around in the game, you move your character through the game space. So the game space, of course, extends beyond that little tape outline that you create on the floor, but everything that you actually need to interact with falls within that. So these levels, of course, unlock one by one as you complete the tasks. But we're just going to take a look at the first one. So first things first, of course, you're always in a set position in this game. So a little sort of blank stage with a tape mark tells you where you need to go to start a particular level. When you don't control the character, you can see your hair, and then that goes away when you have full AR control to explore the lighthouse. We're getting a little bit of glitching, probably just because we're playing this straight off the thumb drive here, but generally runs pretty smooth. So we've got nice sky, nice oceans. Now, that's okay. It's up to you. But yeah, no. One of the sort of design pillars I was working from was I wanted sort of a rounded realism to everything. So not so much realistic or sort of polygonal or anything like that, but a kind of a beveled, smoothed, slightly more kind of complicated look to everything. I've just noticed that iOS doesn't really seem to have trouble pushing a lot of polygons. It's really when you get into complicated shaders that you start to get into trouble. So, for instance, the ocean doesn't really use full-on Gerstner waves or anything like that. It's a simplified version, but I can customize a lot about it because I wanted to be able to create a lot of different moods for the ocean. Same for the skyboxes. Everything is, every different level has a different sky, which is meant to sort of invoke the ideas of the mental state of the character.
How do you play? And let me now change to the copied video in here.
Sure.
Because that's gonna run nicer probably. Oh, it's naturally not.
No.
Okay.
Still glitchy. Oh well.
Yeah. You have a very constrained space.
Yes.
Everything is happening on a very tiny room, which is, but you're moving a lot as well in the game. You are traversing.
Yes, exactly.
The space a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find working with such a small space? Was this part of how you envisioned from the very beginning? How do I do AR, and how do I do some of the moves there?
Well, what some of this came out of was I'd worked with AR a bit on my internship actually earlier in the year, and I noticed that basically the camera control from AR, the current AR systems, is extremely good, but actually placing things in the real world tends to glitch a bit. So I was trying to think in terms of what can we do to just use the AR device as a pure character controller. And so we could try to adapt to the actual physical space that the player's in, or we can try to constrain the space. And that's where the sort of narrowly confined but vertically complicated space comes from. And of course, a lighthouse falls out of that. And then combine that with some character beats and ideas I'd wanted to work with for a while. And that's kind of where the whole idea pops out of.
So in this format, instead of playing sitting down in front of a computer, you have this small window, and the controller is your body.
Yes.
And the movement.
Exactly.
Of your body, which is something I haven't seen really being played out in an AR, because it's usually elements that are placed on the camera of the phone.
Exactly.
You have a full game that you're piloting with your body.
Yep. And so, of course, there are certain things that we have to look out for. Like the character controller, obviously, you can walk through where there's a wall, but your character can't. So there's certain on-screen indications. In an upcoming version of the beta, there will be little haptic feedback when you run into a wall, when you bump your knees on something. Just to give you a better sense of the embodiment. Of course, you can sort of slip off something to the left or the right as you get hung up. And you walk into a stairwell, you go up or you go down. You could probably speed run this game in like 20 minutes, but you would get quite a workout, which I actually find kind of interesting in itself.
The game is complete. You can play from start to finish.
You can, yep. I'm really just trying to refine a lot of things right now. This will, of course, wind up on the App Store, hopefully by the end of the summer. It's just that last 10% always takes the other 90% of the time. So just every little bit of glitchiness, things like that, I'm trying to get rid of. The hair tends to jump a little bit with the cloth sim. Things like that are just not quite right yet. Redoing some modeling, redoing some lighting, all of that fun stuff. But yeah, no, the game as exists is fully playable. You sort of get a short story about this character Lily and the strange events that have taken place in our world in 1905 that she's been a part of, and her little adventure, or maybe just the beginnings of her adventures, who knows.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I have the feeling that... Oh, I have a proper microphone now. Okay, I need the links for you two so that I can throw them on the Google Doc. I have them. Okay, so first of all, let me switch back to the stream view. We're gonna basic podcast. I am back here with Chris and Matt. Okay, so we got also the link there for the comic that we were seeing before, and on here we have this one that also goes on the chat format. And Chris, where can I find yours? Is it any here? Okay, that's fine. Then let's wrap up. That was maybe way longer than what we expected. I haven't been able to check my phone because my phone is the camera of this stream. So I'm not sure how long did this take, but I hope that it was okay. Thanks a lot. The sun is still up. The sun is still up, but the sun is up all the time in this time of the year in this confusing land. Anyways, thanks a lot for participating thanks a lot for participating. Thanks a lot for sharing your projects. Congratulations again, and I guess see you next year. Made with Unity. What? I'm so much wanting to see this stream again now. Okay, end stream. Bye bye.